Hey, this is Chris here. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about the upcoming debate on June 27th, specifically the whole area of dementia and the debate. I'm taking off my preacher hat right now to speak and putting on my nurse hat with years of clinical experience dealing with people in various stages of dementia, especially those with advanced cases of dementia, and just talk a little bit about what I see and experience with dementia patients and relate that to what we may or may not see in the debate coming up. To give you a guideline of where I plan to go on this video, I want to first talk about this whole prospect of drugs being used in the debate that somehow would give somebody an advantage if they had dementia. The second thing, I want to give you examples of some actual questions that should be asked of the candidates that would help voters determine their cognitive abilities and their cognitive state. I don't think they're probably going to ask these kind of questions because they're not going to get ratings, and they're interested in ratings more than truth on CNN or any of these stations that do these kinds of things. And then the last thing, I want to talk about the different signs of a normal aging process versus the signs that somebody has dementia that's becoming symptomatic. So I want to just jump into the video now, and we'll just talk about these things one at a time. So the first thing about drugs. There are drugs out there like Dementia that slow the progress of dementia, that slow the damage being done to the brain. But dementia, there's a number of conditions that fall under the umbrella of dementia, Alzheimer's just being one of them, Lewy body dementia. There's just a number of things that are dementias. Dementia is brain damage. The brain is being damaged and neural processes are being interrupted. And if you think about the brain as a computer, there are files that are being corrupted in the brain because of this brain damage. And there is no medicine that somebody can give to give cognition, to bring back and undo that brain damage that dementia does. And Trump and his surrogates are doing a tremendous disservice by suggesting somehow there's some medicine out there that people are going to give Biden to help him, if he had dementia, to all of a sudden think and speak clearly. It's not there. And I think of the millions of people that are suffering from some form of dementia in this country, and that there are millions more of loved ones who love and care for them and would do anything to lift them out of the fog of dementia so that they could speak and act clearly, and to be given this idea, this false notion that somehow there's some medicine that can do that is just a heartless and cruel lie. It's more than just politics. This is just to me, it's just the height of immorality, especially those doctors aligned with Trump that they know better, and that they're still out there saying these things that they know that are false in order to help advance a political candidacy and really hurt people. The second thing is, I laugh at this, and if you know somebody or a loved one that has dementia that's very symptomatic and is advancing, you know what sundowners is, that in the evening time they become more agitated, they become more difficult to deal with, and sometimes it's just downright hard to deal with the agitation and the delusions and the wild thinking patterns and the aggression, and to think that somebody had dementia and all of a sudden you're going to give them a stimulant to keep them awake at a debate. No, if they have dementia, the stimulant would just make everything absolutely worse. It wouldn't make them perform better. They would perform worse. Now, if they are an elderly person that doesn't have dementia, maybe that caffeine or as they're suggesting, Adderall or some kind of stimulant, might stimulate them. But even then, I think it would be difficult because as our brains age, they slow down, and to just flood the body with something just to speed everything up is just going to cause more opportunities not to perform well. And then the other thing, and again, I don't know where these people, and they claim to be medical people. All I can think is that they're not giving accurate medical information simply because they're just trying to do politics. And to me, it's just crazy. So on one hand, you're going to give the person a stimulant, and then another thing they say, well, President Biden was too angry and aggressive, so we're going to give something to calm him down. Well, what is it? You're going to give them a stimulant, and then you're going to depress their nervous system response, and somehow both of those are going to happen at the same time. We're going to get him alert and awake, and then he's not going to be aggressive. The side effects of those medicines that you would give that would take the edge off of aggression, even with dementia patients, are going to make them sleepy. It's going to make them less alert. That's a side effect. So just saying that, none of this makes sense. What makes more sense to me is that Joe Biden realizes that the stakes are very, very high, like at the State of the Union. And he's working very hard, and his adrenaline is pumping, and he knows it's really important for him to be up, to be there, to be with it, to be alert, and to give it his all. Kind of like an athlete gets pumped up for an athletic event and goes out there, and all their body is rising, bringing up all this adrenaline, everything to help them perform their best. That's probably what's happening with President Biden. He realizes, like at the State of the Union, at this debate, he's got to bring it all. He's got to do well, and he knows what the stakes are. So he is going to be really up on adrenaline. He's going to probably be more aggressive, to be more challenging, because he is getting up for this event, just like a sporting event, and he knows now is the time. He's got to perform, he's got to shine, and he's got that positive stress for performance going on. So I would just encourage you to kind of think about those kinds of things as alternative explanations to somebody is all drugged up in a debate. The next thing I wanted to talk about is, if I can get my notes going here, is questions at the debate. Because one of the things that the moderators could do to help us really assess the thinking of these candidates and the ability to process information, because that's what we need of a president. We need a president to take their wealth of knowledge and then take in new knowledge, new situations, and process that and synthesize that and come up with a solution. I've got this new information, I've got this experience, how do I put it together? So I think there's some really good questions to ask of these candidates. The first types of questions would force them to take in new information, maybe that they weren't expecting, and expect them to synthesize it with their already known information and experience. And these are longer questions, and they require processing skills. Let me give you a couple of examples. Mr. Trump, economists at Moody's analyzed your economic plans. Your promised tax cuts to the wealthy, funding the government through higher import tariffs, and mass deportation of migrants would lead to an inflation rise from 3.3 to 3.6%, which is higher than the 2.4% next year projected if Biden wins re-election. The U.S. would have 3.2 million fewer jobs under your plan and an unemployment rate of 4.5%. Further, the GDP under your plan would average a projected 1.3% instead of the projected 2.1% under Biden for 2025. And they project all of this, if your plans were put in place, would trigger a recession. And on top of that, the projected national debt is expected to skyrocket if you win another term. If you disagree with this analysis from Moody's, tell the American people why we should expect strong economic growth under your economic plans. See what we're doing there? We're giving a lot of information that he's got to process and give an answer. President Biden, one of the reasons why so many people are skeptical about reelecting you is that housing and transportation have become unaffordable to most Americans under your presidency. According to Zillow research, home prices are 45% higher than before the pandemic, and house payments are 115% higher. Someone living on the median family income needs to put down an average of $127,750 to afford their own home. In May, the typical house cost $360,310. And with a 20% down payment, the mortgage on a home would be $1,931. This is even without considering the cost of utilities. There aren't enough houses and apartment complexes being built in urban and suburban areas to meet the need, while in small town America, good, affordable houses are vacant because there are not enough jobs in small town America. Tell the American people why they should trust you to take care of this problem. Do you see? We've got to take in this information, begin to think about what I know about policy and what I believe, and begin to relate that information to my positions to be able to give a response. Another kind of question is to ask questions that require abstract thinking skills. Just like processing new information, abstract thinking skills are difficult, if not impossible, for those with dementia. For example, Mr. Trump, you and your followers promote replacement theory that sees migrant voters as being automatically voters of Democrats if they get the right to vote. Why do Republicans think they have no chance at winning the majority of migrant votes if those migrants become United States citizens? Again, he's got to think abstractly. President Biden, you and the Democratic Party actively promote diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, DEI. But many Americans have deeply held religious beliefs at odds with the moral boundaries that are more acceptable to more secular people. How can the Democrats promote diversity, equity, and inclusion for deeply religious people who in the last decade have become a clear minority in this country? Again, how are we going to think abstractly and begin to relate some of these concepts is a challenge. And asking questions like this can be very helpful. Lastly, what are some signs for dementia to look for in the debate? Let's talk about first things that are not signs of dementia. They are not signs of dementia. They're just normal aging process. Elderly people take more time to process thoughts, and they may not have the energy and vigor to project well, so sometimes they are more soft-spoken. But you can expect a few seconds delay for an answer for somebody that's older. It doesn't mean they have dementia. It just means that they are having to process and organize their thoughts a little longer than a younger person before sharing what they have, what they're thinking. And somebody like President Biden, who has a stutter, may fill that silent time of processing after getting the information, may fill it with a stutter, because they're processing, and that stutter just becomes a way of filling that silent time. Another thing is, don't mistake rapidly answering a question as a sign that someone doesn't have dementia. Just because somebody rapidly answers a question doesn't mean that they don't have dementia, because somebody can they're just used to, and they just start babbling like they know the answer, but what you hear is gibberish and nonsense and makes no sense and doesn't answer the question. So somebody that's elderly is going to, but doesn't have dementia, is still going to be able to answer the question. And so that's what we want to look at. We want to see, are they actually answering the question? Now, I know sometimes uncomfortable questions, politicians are very skilled at just diverting and just talking about something else. But I think in this debate, I think it's really, we got to really pay attention to that and not just think that they're being a politician, but are they really understanding it? So let me show you, talk to you about a few signs of dementia that I see in clinical practice all the time that can kind of help you understand. First of all, a major sign of dementia is the loss of advanced vocabulary, more complex vocabulary. People with dementia, their vocabulary gets simpler and simpler and more basic and more basic. In other words, the vocabulary centers around the words that they've used most frequently in their lives. And so they don't have access to these more complicated and complex words that an educated person might have, like a lawyer or a doctor or somebody like that. There are these words that are used infrequently, yet they still have command of them because they have access to them in their brain, filed away somewhere. Somebody with dementia is going to be very basic in the vocabulary, basically speaking like a fourth grader. If you hear answers that sound like what a fourth grader would give, and a fourth grader's vocabulary, that can be a real sign of dementia, overly simple vocabulary. Another sign is to combine words and syllables incorrectly. For example, houseboat becomes house ship. Joe Biden becomes Joe Bride, or you might combine syllables in this nonsensical, you don't even know what the word is, because their brain is not allowing them to construct words. And oftentimes with dementia, they're not even aware that they're doing this. They'll just go on and they'll just speak, and you'll say, what in the world were they just saying? Those words don't make sense. They're not anything what I would expect to be being said. So they will have this lack of awareness, and these word jumbles will come out, and wrong word combinations, not combining syllables in the right way to make a word. Somebody that doesn't have dementia, that's maybe older, they're going to be aware when they misspeak, and they're going to have some self-awareness of that, and it will be evident even in body language or in them correcting themselves, that they're aware that they've misspoken. Somebody with dementia is not going to be as aware that they have misspoken. Another thing is there's a rhythm to our speech. So that people with dementia will have this rhythm of speech down. They've done it their whole lives. But what will come out is word salads. Their brain isn't allowing them to put together cogent thoughts, but they know that there's give and take in conversation. Somebody asks them something and they say something in return. They kind of start to parrot back, say back some of the words that they heard in the question, and then they just build a word salad around it. And it makes very little sense. Oftentimes what we do is we assemble those word salads and make sense about it in our brains. We decode them so we know what they're saying. But when you get right back down to it and you look at the transcript, it's just going to be a whole jumbled word salad that makes absolutely no sense. Incomplete sentences, incomplete thoughts. And they're just engaging in this rhythm that dementia patients do of going back and forth in conversation, picking up a few of the words that you say in your question and reflecting them back in these nonsensical word salads. Another thing is the loss of time and place and people and situations, and things become fuzzy. And sometimes things are put in the wrong order. Some people are mistaken for other people. Some places are mistaken for other places. And along with this, it's very blurry between reality and the made-up world. And so oftentimes you'll see somebody with dementia having trouble distinguishing the world they see on their television from the real life. For example, somebody that never rode a horse before has been watching Westerns for years and now has dementia and thinks they own a barn and a horse and wants to go see their horse. And the family is saying, well, you'd never own a horse, you've never ridden a horse. But their mind, their brain is reconstructing a reality that doesn't exist. And the last thing is those with dementia often exhibit paranoia. They are very susceptible to conspiracy theories. They are often just it's almost like delusional, deranged, and you'll hear them spout these conspiracy theories, not as, well, some people believe this, other people believe that, and this is why I believe this, but this is the reality. This is the unquestioned reality of these conspiracy theories. And so you'll hear you hear a lot of paranoia from those with dementia. So anyway, this is my overview, kind of look at this. I don't know what's going to transpire at the debate. I'll be watching it. I hope you watch it as well. And maybe in comments after the debate, I'll make a video and we can just comment about our observations and what we saw when we watched the debate. I do thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and God bless.